Some authors want to push narrative rules through the media, questioning why they have to tell a story or if the narrative restrictions even apply. Jean Giraud, better known by his artistic name Moebius, is such an author. He often worked with other authors, focusing on illustrating. This video will consider only his work as a complete author, both writing and illustrating a story. In this video we will look at his red thread. All his works are connected by a narrative thread, in the themes he explores. Moebius' focal point is to deconstruct narrative. All his works want to take the rules of narrative, especially the division in acts, start, middle and end, and play with them, starting a story in the middle and never giving it an end, making it a narrative experiment. Other times he won't provide any context for his tales, simply throwing the reader in the middle of a world without establishing any rules or who the characters are, leaving the reader wholly dismayed and yet fulfilled by his beautiful drawings. The most famous example is the series of short tales of Arzac, which is always written differently in each story. They are the most bizarre adventures about a pterodactyl rider who goes around a world shaped by different elements of many different genres. From fantasy to steampunk to post-apocalyptic to science fiction, all brewed together. The stories are self-conclusive, do not mean anything and do not make any world building. They simply are. They are delightful for the maniacal amount of details that every panel displays, but do not wish to narrate anything. To better understand, here is an example. Interestingly, he declared that every story he ever wrote took place in the same universe, no matter the setting or the time frame. Moebius created so many stories with such different settings and time frames that it seems impossible that they are all set in the same universe. Mainly because no episode pushes on world building. They are separate stories just thrown out there with no structures. Most of them mention rules, planets and armies, giving the impression that there is indeed a universe outside of the single story, but never a common element with each other. It could be another experiment by the author, leaving the audience to decipher the world building. The first story that introduces this idea of world building is The Airtight Garage. It is an epic story set in a sci-fi universe that sees Major Krubert and Jerry Cornelius at the center of it all, trying to access the garage. The story was first published in chapters. The first one starts with a summary of the previous ones, which is absurd. The story was written chapter by chapter, never with an end point in mind. Every chapter introduces names, lore and characters that have no or minor consequences in the following ones, and some mentioned just once. The story is voluntarily confusing and ends suddenly, without resolving any conflicts, as if the story would continue, but the readers are not allowed to know how. However, his capacity to be intentionally deconstructing doesn't frustrate the readers. Instead, it intrigues them to learn more about this world. What creates such intrigue isn't just the deconstruction, but his drawings. As mentioned before, Moebius worked as an illustrator. His authorial works push hard on this side. His drawings are fascinating and so full of details that by themselves they create a world. He wanted to create sensations in the readers more than tell a story, creating an atmosphere that those reading would be entirely enveloped by. The use of frames is essential too. He was constantly experimenting with shape, length or width because each changed the impact on the reader. He favored short stories, few pages with few frames. There are many great examples, from Approaching Centuria, making the reader feel the pain of the man being devoured, to The Blind City, creating an Arthurian story with nightly atmospheres, or the bleak Christmas on Lipponia, where the colors are dull by choice, giving the world a sensation of doom and despair. On a personal note, Jean Giraud has been a great comic book author, conquering his place in the must-read section of every person interested in the media. He pushed boundaries with what you could do with a comic book, exploring the media itself from a narrative point of view, creating material that could work only in the media. In the description of the video, you'll find a link to a couple of short stories, so you can check them out yourself. Onward to the next author.